here, but yeah, let's go ahead and get rolling. So yeah, first things first, just welcome everybody to Strike University. I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff today, and hopefully we'll get into some interesting conversations, and we'll make some stuff together today as well. So first things first, I just wanted to do some introductions and kind of just do name, pronouns, like an organization that you're affiliated with or what you do, and then we'll kind of just pass it around. So I'll start first. I'm Michael. I'm a first-year MFA student in the Digital Arts New Media program here at UC Santa Cruz. My pronouns are he, him, and I'll pass it to Eric.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, I'm Eric, pronouns he, him. I am, a undergrad in AGPM at Santa Cruz. That's Art and Design, Games and Playable Media. And I'm currently I'm academically barred from enrollment, and I may not be coming back because the UC and all their horrible stuff, and I'm not sure I really want to support that. But that's sort of how I got here.
Okay, right on. And then do you want to pass it to someone else?
Sure. How about how do I pronounce this? Lachlan?
Yeah, hey, sorry, it's Lachlan. Thank you, and thanks, Michael, for hosting this. I'm Lachlan. I'm a third-year cultural anthropology PhD student at UCSC, but I'm not in Santa Cruz right now, and everything's pretty up in the air.
And then Lachlan, you want to pass it on?
Sorry, mate.
No,
yeah,
thanks.
I'll pass it through to Sophia.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I graduated from UCLA, but I know Michael and I'm very invested in this meeting. So
you want to do pronouns and
yeah, she, her pronouns.
And UCLA, cool.
And UCLA, yeah.
And then pass it to someone else.
I guess I'll pass it to Eric, or
I guess we'll do either Patrick or Yulia.
Okay, I'll pass it to Yulia.
Cool. Hi everyone. My name is Yulia. I use they and she pronouns. I am a fourth-year film and digital media PhD candidate at UCSC. I dropped the link in the chat for live captions if it's helpful for anyone. If you click on this, it will open up live captions in a separate window. They are messy sometimes, but hopefully if it's it helps. Yeah, excited for this. Thank you, Michael. And I'm gonna pass it to Patrick. Cool.
Okay, Patrick is typing in the chat box. Awesome. Okay, great. So I'll kind of give you guys an overview of what I'm planning to talk about and what I'm planning to kind of direct us to do together, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I want to talk about a number of kind of historical precedents. I guess I should preface that by saying I got heavily involved in the transition from moving the wildcat strike at UC Santa Cruz from its initial kind of planning phases into its physical sort of manifestation on the picket line. And so a lot of that involved just taking on various roles. Specifically for me, it was building a lot of things, building signs to march with. And so through building the signs, I started making artworks about and kind of with and through that sign making. And then all of this other research kind of spilled out of it. So I want to talk about some historical precedents. We're going to do some quick like theory stuff. I'll show you guys some of the different stuff that I've been making and talk about how it's been received a little bit. And then towards the end, we'll do kind of a drawing activity, and then we'll bring all of those drawings together kind of into a collective drawing. So yeah, I'll go ahead and just kind of jump into it. I do want to say I do have a tendency to just totally go off and ramble and talk. So I will try not to get too sidetracked, but if you do want to put anything in the chat box or just unmute yourself and interject at any time, please go ahead and do that. Cool. So let me share my screen with you guys. Hopefully this sound will be okay, but I want to start us off with this. Share computer sound. Okay, great. And can everybody see this screen okay? Nice. Okay, so let me give a quick preference. So this is a couple minutes from a BBC documentary by the filmmaker Adam Curtis, and it's called All Watched Over by Machines of Love and Grace. I highly recommend you watch it. It's really interesting. It's just about the development of sort of computers and culture in the late 20th century and early 21st century. And the title's taken from a poem by Richard Brautigan, who's an American author who wrote a book called Trout Fishing in America, which is just kind of a side piece, but that's interesting to note as well. So let's watch a couple minutes of this and we'll go from there.
Now in the 1990s, the technologies had been built. And in 1991, a leading computer engineer from California gave a dramatic demonstration. He was called Lauren Carpenter. He invited hundreds of people to a large shed. On each seat was a small paddle, and in front of them was a giant screen.
We told them nothing for a while. We just left the things on the seats, and people would pick this up and look at it and say, "What's that?" And then somebody noticed that there's little red and green dots up there on the screen, and this is red and green, so maybe that has something to do with that. That would be that. Okay, there I am. And when that happened, the room erupted. Just totally spontaneous. We didn't say anything.
Carpenter then began an experiment. He projected the early computer game Pong. Each half of the audience jointly controlled the bat on their side of the screen. If an individual held red on their paddle, a computer sensor picked it up and the bat on the screen went down. If they held up green, it went up. But they had to operate it together.
When the game is being played and the ball is going back and forth, if it's down here and it's headed that way, some people are going to have to show red to keep it from going all the way to the top. If everybody just showed green, it would slam up to the top and the ball would miss. So something happened in that group of people where some decided to show green and some decided to show red to cause it to stop in the right place. And we have no idea what did that.
So hopefully that wasn't too laggy and you guys caught most of that. But okay, so why the hell are we talking about this? So this is in 1991 at SIGGRAPH, and it was conducted by Lauren Carpenter, who was a computer engineer. And so this to me, like after I saw this the first time, I was totally captivated by it. And it very much encapsulates this idea about the relationship between the individual and the collective. And that is sort of what this entire participation in the strike process became for me. And so that I think that's going to color a lot of what we talk about in the next half hour or so. And so what's really fascinating about that is there's no sort of, everyone is making that individual decision, but what emerges, or I guess what comes out of that is this emergent property of playing this choreographed game of Pong. But there's no one that's making an executive decision about, you know, how many people should hold up green or how many people should hold up red, but rather it's sort of this process that emerges from this collective action, right? So let me take a quick tangent, and I want to I'll share my screen with you guys again, and I want to do a little bit of theory tangent. We won't get too crazy with it, but I do want to talk about it and think it's important for us. Okay, so I've got my little drawing or painting here. So immaterial labor is still material. So, okay, briefly putting aside this collective action bit, I want to jump into, so this is a book. My advisor is Marianne Weems, and she's an experimental theater director for a group called the Builders Association. And the amazing Shannon Jackson wrote a book with her that was published by MIT Press. And in part of this book, Shannon's talking about a couple theorists that are discussing this idea between immaterial and material labor. So I just want to read a portion of this and then jump back into this. So in such a changing context, theorists of globalization also speculate that concepts of work have changed as well. The hyper-material labor of a Marxist base has been replaced by the mobilization of what Michael Hart and Antonio Negri call quote-unquote immaterial labor. Someone's joining us in the waiting room. Okay, so we've got Hart and Negri talking about immaterial labor, whether taking shape in the exchange of information or in the affective offering of compassion or care, excitement, and hospitality. These immaterial forms are central to a growing service economy. So they talk about this digital networked world of immaterial work. And then Saskia Sassen continues and talks about how these things are actually embedded in material infrastructures. So I don't want to read too much about that, but because I could go on, but it's sort of boring to just read to a Zoom call and boring to listen to. So, but basically we have people like Sassen and Hart and Negri that are arguing that these new kinds of immaterial labor, stuff that other people have termed to be like the cognitariat, or so things that are happening in the service economy, things that are happening in educational economies, as being immaterial forms of labor, that those are all still grounded in the material, either in the body, your body sitting there typing keys, whatever, or you know, again, like these sort of localized, specific geographical places. Okay, so we've got our two bits right now. So I want to keep those with us. This bit about the relationship between the individual to the collective that we have from Pong, and then also this bit between immaterial labor still being, in fact, material labor. So let's continue. So the first thing that I did, or one of the first things that I did as a part of this strike process was, I've sort of joked that in the union, I became the chair of miscellaneous building activities. So I went to Home Depot and purchased all of these materials that you guys can see here on my receipt. So this was all wood glue, it was lumber, it was cedar shims, and the whole thing cost us $214.75. And this was I had a critique, and I displayed all of the different available materials kind of on this wall. But that's my receipt from Home Depot. So let me go over to my materials cart. There it is. So here's my materials cart. And these are the physical, actual materials that we use to build this stuff. And then a really interesting thing happened. So this is me kind of as an individual purchasing materials, helping to build these signs. And then the strike actually started happening. We're on the picket line, striking, protesting every single day. And every single day that I came, I brought my camera with me and I started documenting. And what I started noticing was really, really interesting. And it was this right here. So this is an image of during the first week of the actual physical picket line, there were two kind of groups heading towards each other. There was a group that was down on the lawn, and there was a group that was down on this higher street, and they sort of, we sort of converged together in this really amazing moment, one of those first times. But this is an image that I captured from that moment, and it was this aesthetic motif that really struck me, because once I saw it, I started seeing it everywhere. And I was like, wow, like I helped build these signs. It was a big group of us. It was me and a lot of the people from the psych department specifically that built these signs. And I didn't come up with this pattern. Somebody else came up with this pattern. I just had the materials and we kind of figured out how to build them together. But I started seeing this pattern emerge, these three horizontal bars on top, the X in the middle, and 3 horizontal bars on the bottom. This is the best picture that exemplifies it, but you can even see here, it starts to creep in. And so I just started noticing this appearing all over the place. So that led to me kind of lifting this aesthetic motif of the strike X's, as I've been calling them, and starting to make drawings about them. So let me go over to my drawings. So here is the image of the strike X. And this is how I started to render them, just with I would do a pencil outline and then kind of a charcoal outline, or and then I would go into an ink wash or an acrylic wash. Why those materials is they're just the materials I chose that I particularly am fond of. But I wanted to see how this symbol functioned outside of the context of this strike. What happens when my individual labor and contribution turns into something that is kind of this collective action and contribution. How can I, what does that mean to have this symbol floating around in these images that was sort of out of this collective action process? So I just started making drawings, and I was making a lot of drawings. I didn't know why I was making them or really what to do with them, but just that it seemed like an interesting concept, right? And so the first kind of reactions that I had to this, or that people sort of brought to me during critique, yielded some really interesting conversations and really interesting, a bunch of different ways into attacking kind of this idea, and one of which was incredibly generative. And it was sort of someone pointed out, it might have even been Patrick. I don't know if Patrick's still in here, but just the idea that so these are signs, right? The ones that people are actually holding, these are signs, but also this image then becomes a sign, and a sign as in a symbol. So there's you have the signs that you literally hold in your hand as a sign, and then you have a sign like in semiotic theory or linguistics, like a sign or a symbol. So what we have in effect is a whole host of, we have drawings that become signs of signs, right? So, and I don't want to I don't pretend to be, I'm not a semiotician or a linguist or anything like that, but it did seem really significant as a way to get into a little bit of semiotics. So hence the semiotics part of this aesthetics and semiotics title. So right here we have oh, nice. Eric says significant. Yes, significant. Great. So right here we have, so this is, so in semiotics, I want to do a brief thing about semiotics, is that kind of the two main schools of semiotic thought are the Swiss guy, Saussure, and this other guy, Pierce. I don't remember where Pierce is from, but so this is actually a drawing from Saussure, and it's a really basic concept, but it's that there's a relationship between what's called the signifier and the signified, right? And this whole thing comprises a sign. So the signifier is the form that sign or symbol takes, and the signified is the thing that is pointing to. So why bring this up is because I guess it provided me an interesting framework for trying to think about how these works were being made, right? So in this drawing, you have a signifier, and the thing that it's signifying is this aesthetic pattern that's found on the back of these signs. So these are in fact the signified, but what started to build up for me about the signified became things about labor and my individual contribution to this collective action, and thinking about Pong and things like that. So it was a framework that provided me a way, I guess, a layer deeper into this process. Okay, so let me stop there because I've been rambling and talking quite quickly. Does anybody have any comments or questions so far, stuff that you want to chat about right this second before I continue? I don't want to just blast through this whole thing without checking in. But if no, that's okay too, and I can keep talking. Oops, let me find the chat. Okay, people are being silent and chat is being silent, so I will keep talking. Sophia's giving some clap hands. Okay, good. Danny's got people wearing masks. Okay, so let's continue. So that's kind of the area that we're working with, right? So after this point, we got into conversations about how the signs that I had presented started to look a little worn or faded. So I presented basically a whole wall of images like these, and in fact, I've got all of my different variations here with me. There's I don't know how many there are now, but the ones that I presented on the wall sort of started to look a little bit tired or faded out, and people were reading into it as being sort of like the fatigue of the strike or being tired, in relation to doing this type of labor work. But something that was brought up was possibilities that this type of symbol could actually be reinvigorated or renewed. And so I thought, okay, so how can I do that? Because I don't want it to end here. I don't want it to end, with these works on paper. I want it to continue, and I want the signs and symbols to sort of reflect our renewed, the renewed energy that we had on the picket line. And so I got into the next phase of this. Let me find it. Which was making works in the digital sphere. So this happened with a very simple kind of processing sketch. It's not that exciting, but I do want to share. Let's see if this will share the window with you guys. So this is the sketch. I don't know if it'll actually show you the drawing pattern. Maybe not. Maybe I have to share my whole screen. Give me 1 second. Show all windows. Is that an option? Oh, maybe it's this. Can you guys see this process? Okay, cool. So I started doing these kind of just very basic drawings and paintings with this aesthetic motif, right? So here is this is a very simple sketch in a program called processing, and it's just using this motif as a paintbrush, right? And so what kind of happened, or what emerged out of that, was this feeling of like renewal and resurgence, and this infinitude of signs and symbols. So it no longer felt like it ended with the works on paper, right? This, I think, could be expanded in a lot of different ways. Sometimes they get really interesting. Sometimes they're especially I had a screen here that I borrowed too, which is a touch screen, and so I was just on this big screen, sort of making these like finger paintings with this motif. And sometimes you get some really beautiful things to emerge out of it. But yes, that was kind of the next phase of this. And then the third phase was a kind of time-based phase. So I don't have footage of it here, but I slowed down. I started finding images in news media that were posted online where that aesthetic motif would appear, and started capturing them, slowing them down to like, 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 times, as slow as they could be. And it produced this really bizarre kind of abstracted film with the sound component of like the newscasters and the kind of the X's really slowly being painted across the screen. So that was kind of a third iteration of this. And then, so, okay, I want to talk about one more historical example before I introduce kind of our drawing activity. And then we'll go from there. So the other person, or one of the other people that I've been thinking about quite a lot in regards to this process is, let me find them, is the artist Francis Alise. And let's see, we want to get out of this video. So Francis Alise did this really, really brilliant project. Let me refresh the page here. And let me play a little bit of this, and then we can talk about it. Okay, so Francis Alise took this. This is a project that he did where he started retouching and repainting these median strips in the middle of the roads in Central America, I believe, near the Panama Canal. And so there's a whole kind of history of political and economic layers to that, and to that specific area. And so what he's doing is sort of taking his labor and inserting it, through the line back into that, or into that political landscape, and injecting sort of his labor into that landscape. And so what I was thinking about is how once I built the signs with that group of people, I was kind of doing an inverse or a negative of what Francis Alise was doing, which is that I was drawing I was lifting the aesthetic motif out of the political landscape and drawing and working with it there. And so what I want to suggest is that by doing this sort of collective drawing exercise that we're going to do, that we're actually bringing it back into that landscape, albeit at this point it's a digital one. But again, that's why I brought up the idea of the differences between immaterial and material labor, as well as that individual and collective action aspect, is because I think that's what we're gonna start to do together. So okay, let me stop this portion. Does anyone have any questions or comments, related or unrelated, that they they want to chime in with either in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and say anything that would be generative to the conversation is totally welcome. So let me mute myself for like a minute and see if anybody has anything that they wanna. Okay, so here is your guys' challenge. I will give you these instructions. Okay, so we're going to draw some of these strike signs, and so these are your instructions, and maybe I'll put them in the chat box too to make it easier. But you can draw your strike sign either digitally or physically. But you've got to have 3 horizontal bars on the top, 2 diagonal overlapping rectangles in the middle, which mostly will comprise the X portion, and then 3 horizontals on the bottom, 3 horizontal boxes on the bottom. Right. So let me write that in the chat box. 3. Okay, so you can do this either digitally or physically. If you do it physically, just grab a piece of paper and whatever other materials or mediums that you want to grab. If it's ink or graphite or acrylic paint or whatever, as long as you follow these instructions, these are the only guidelines that will restrain that. So you can do anything with those marks or that mark making process that you want, as long as you follow those constraints. And if you're going to do it digitally, that's fine too. You can use anything like anything from Photoshop or Illustrator, or like some Adobe product, or you can use there are some drawing tools and sketching tools online. Let me just pull one up. You can use like kind of these whiteboard websites for drawing and sketching. I'll put one here. I'm not endorsing this, but it's the one that comes up if you Google whiteboard. And you can make those marks, again, any way that you want, any kind of layering that you want to do or whatever. You don't even have to at all make it. You can think of it completely differently than the way that I was making them, as long as you follow these 3 instructions. So 3 horizontal boxes on top, 2 diagonal rectangles in the middle, which overlap, and 3 horizontal boxes on the bottom. And so I just want to say, so while you're doing this, the thing that I want us to think about is right now is to feel kind of wherever you are physically, to feel that and feel your relationship to the rest of us right now in this conglomeration, in this network. And if you for example are going to draw it physically, right, feel your hands and your wrist. Feel your arm pulling the graphite or pushing the marker, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're doing it digitally, really feel that click with your finger and dragging the mouse. Just feel the labor of yourself doing that, because as I was kind of talking about earlier, and let me share it one more time for you guys. Not this. This, right? Immaterial labor is still material. So when you're producing this work, I mean, it's a bit easier to understand if you're physically drawing it, but if you're digitally drawing it, to think about this as well as our individual labor, right? And so then the next thing I'm going to do is, so after you're finished, and I'll give us, I don't know, 10 minutes or so to draw. After you're finished, and I think I'll probably do mine digitally because I've been making so many physical versions of this symbol. If you've done it physically, I want you to take an image of it with your phone or computer or whatever, and upload it onto this Google Drive folder that I'm going to share with you guys. And if you do it digitally, I just want you to like save it as a JPEG or a PNG or whatever. Take a screenshot of it and then upload it to that same folder. And if anybody doesn't know how to do that or is confused about that, let me know. You can unmute yourself and ask, or just put it in the chat box, and I can kind of walk you through that process. But again, so once you're finished with your sign, take an image of it and put it into the folder here. Let's see. I think someone else is joining us. Hi, Veronica. Veronica's joining us. Okay.
What we're doing for.
Say that again, Yulia.
Yeah, could you just repeat what we're doing for Veronica who just?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So Veronica, and if other people have joined, so what we're doing right now is a drawing activity that's based on the backs of the signs. So what you're gonna do is, and I'll copy and paste this back in the box, in the chat box here, so that you can see chat. So you can either do this physically or digitally, but you just need to make 3 horizontal boxes on top, 2 diagonal rectangles in the middle that are overlapping, and 3 horizontal boxes on the bottom. So you can do this either physically with graphite or marker or pencil, whatever you want to do, or you can do it digitally. And then I'm going to share a link with you guys so that you can upload these to this folder. And I'm going to give everybody like, I don't know how long. I guess we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna work on my drawing too, and then I'll share the link once we kind of come back together. But feel free to put something in the chat box or to unmute yourself, describe how it's going. Eric's giving us an awesome view.
Michael?
Say again, Yulia.
Where do we upload?
Okay, let me share that link with you. So I will share that in the chat box with everybody. It is this folder right here. I wish that it changed it into a hyperlink, but I don't know how to do that.
It's a hyperlink for me in the chat.
Oh, it is? Okay, good.
Yeah, it works.
Good. Tony, are you drawing?
Hey, Michael, that hyperlink won't work for me. Can you send it again or in a different way?
Sure. Like it's not, what do you mean? Like, did you go like try to copy and paste it?
Yeah, same here. I copied and pasted it and it didn't work.
Like it didn't go anywhere, or what does it say?
Oh, you know what? So I included
Oh,
basically you copied and pasted a web whiteboard and then the drive link right after for me.
oh, okay.
So you just need to highlight, whoever else had problems, highlight
Oh.
only the drive part.
Oh yeah, my bad. Let me do it again.
Got it.
Oh, that's, yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, the chat box is ugly. Okay. There, I've clearly marked it.
Another thing, it's telling me that I don't have permission to upload to this folder.
Why?
You probably need to change the permissions on your end.
It should be that anyone who has the link can edit. But let me try again. Yeah, anyone with the link, oh, yeah, I did it wrong. There, okay. I just changed it. So anyone who has the link should be able to edit and upload. Yeah. Jasper, are you drawing? Awesome. I'm doing this for the first time on a digital version, but I'm not using a drawing pad or anything. So I'm just using my mouse, so it looks crazy. Ooh, nice. Cool. Okay, good. Some good drawings coming in. Mouse drawing is an acquired skill. I'm doing trackpad drawing right now, which is probably even worse. Although I have a ThinkPad, so I have that little red thing in the middle. So maybe I'll try to use that. It's in the chat. Okay, so Jasper, so upload it to this link. I don't know that you can send it in the chat. Lillian, how is your drawing going?
It's good. I just finished it. I'm gonna upload it.
Cool. I'm going very slowly. Oh, I like Eric's got a live view going. Whoa. I lost my drawing in the whiteboard. No, don't make me sign up for a account. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can finish my. Okay, I'm seeing some really good ones get uploaded into the folder. So I'm gonna give us like 2-3-ish more minutes for anybody who's still finishing up, and then we'll look at them together. I'm really enjoying watching Eric do these pen tests in the corner of my screen. Okay, so for those of you guys, if you're finished, let me share my screen with you guys again, and let's take a look at what we've collected here. Cool. Okay, so for those of you that joined us maybe a little bit later, some of the stuff we were talking about was just we were talking about the relationship between the individual to the collective, just in general, but also specifically using the example of, you know, like me going out and buying the materials, but then being able to make the signs with everybody, and then seeing that aesthetic motif on the back of the signs kind of proliferating through media and through images. And then we sort of talked about a couple different theorists and talking about how immaterial labor is still very much material, right? It happens in your body, it happens in a physical space and location. And then we talked about Francis Alice doing a project where he's repainting the medians of the roadways in Central America, and how he's kind of introducing that gesture back into that political landscape. And sort of when I first started drawing the strike X's, I was kind of taking the X's and kind of removing them from the political landscape. And what we're doing, you know, kind of as a collective is reintroducing them into this new political landscape, which is online. And hopefully we'll, you know, I'll be able to do this type of workshop in the future, and we'll have some physical examples too. But for now, let's check out what we've got here. So, okay, Veronica made some very beautiful colors. We've got some purple horizontal boxes on the top, some reds on the bottom, strike through. Okay, love it. Let's see what's next. Okay, so like I said, you don't have to follow any of the only instructions were just to follow that there were 3 boxes on top, 2 overlapping in the middle, and 3 on the bottom. So this one does totally fulfill that. And it looks like it was done with all like cutting out circles of negative space, which rules. This one's great. That one's from Sophia. Oh wait, I just realized that the one we just looked, the first one we looked at was done by Tony, but it was named Veronica.png.
No, I made that one. I don't know how it says Tony on there.
Oh really? Are you logged into Tony's like Google Drive?
No. How weird.
I own everything.
Tony owns.
Oh my God.
Tony's labor eclipses everything.
Right.
Okay.
Tony's private property. Tony's own.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the next one. This is Lillian's. Oh. Nice colors. Got the boxes on top. Whoa, I didn't even think of this, this, like, I don't know if I can zoom in on this. Whoa. This, like, configuration, because this is technically, oh my God, it's freaking out. This is technically 3 boxes on top and overlapping in the middle and 3 on the bottom, but just done in, like, kind of a stacking pattern, which is awesome. Let's see, someone. Chat. Ooh. Okay, next one. Let's see. I really like these like swatch tests also. They're good. Okay, Yulia. Okay, nice. Classic spiral notebook. Some red marker. Love it. Jasper. Okay, this one rules. Because it looks like Jasper took the original, one of the original flyers that we had about how to help your TA withhold winter grades for the Wildcat strike, and did the 3 boxes on the top, some overlaps, and 3 on the bottom. And I can't tell what is physical and what might be digital on this, if anything. Maybe it's all digital, but it kind of looks like tape as well. But then there's 2 phone cords in the middle. Yeah, this one rules. Okay, let's look at the next one. Maybe Jasper can share in the chat a little bit. No, I photocopy. It's all physical. No way. Is it? Maybe I'll zoom in. Hold on. Whoa. Yeah, this one's, this is great. I love that there's phone cords in it. And I love that we're using like ephemera from the strike. That's all. Oh, Jasper says, yeah, I cut out the stuff and put a laptop and phone cord through. Right on. That rules. Okay. Next one. Okay, this one says it's owned by Tony, but who knows? Let's see. Whoa.
This
Tony's going
is
deep.
mine, obviously.
Tony's going deep into like early net art, like late 80s, early 90s net art. I love it. Multiple line layers. We've got these crazy like cropped out like looks like camera like frame lines.
You know, Michael, I was trying to like turn these boxes and I couldn't do it, and then there was like an eraser. Anyway, that's how that looks like that.
I love that. I also love, yeah, this app. Did you use the one that I sent?
Yes.
Yeah, that whiteboard is really hard to control. But yeah, this came out awesome. Okay, and then here's one I did. Mine is kind of boring in comparison to all these. I was just kind of trying to replicate some of these, some of the strokes from the original ones I did on paper, but like with this weird tool. So I don't know how I feel about that. But okay, so the question is now, what do we do with all of these? I don't know yet, and I was hoping to maybe get some input from you guys, because one of the things that came up originally with when I was like showing the sign drawings, and then also the digital ones and the time-based ones, was like how to keep this sort of proliferating, and how to keep these signs and symbols like moving across space, whether the digital space or the physical space. So I'm wondering if anybody has like any suggestions or things that they would be interesting, or they'd be interested to see, whether it's like an exhibition where all of these are like put back into the physical and like framed, or should they live somewhere like online in a 3D space, or what do you think would be interesting?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have a title for this pattern, Michael? Or like how you've been referring to it as like an aesthetic motif, and I wonder if there's a name that you can like refer to it by.
Yeah, I guess I've been like when I've been writing about them, I've just been calling them like the strike X's, but I don't know if there's a better name that we can give them. That would be awesome, because I don't have like a good name nailed down. And saying aesthetic motif 1,000 times is really annoying.
I
So
like strike X's.
What's that?
I really like strike X's.
Strike X's? Okay, I'm gonna put that in the chat box so I remember. Anybody else have any ideas of where we could put these or place these, or where it would be interesting to like see them, or a next phase of what to do with them?
I have a question.
Do you have a question about this one?
Well, yeah, sure. No, I have a question. Like, it's interesting to me that, you engage with different media, and like you've engaged with these X's in like different forms. and you're not a sound artist, but is there like a sound manifestation for these?
That is a great question. There isn't currently, but there very much could be. I mean, I'm reminded of Priscilla, who's been doing the podcast, right, and working with some of the recordings of chants and things like that. Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and I'm gonna write that down.
I've recently been playing with waveforms and sort of like making. I found a tool online that allows you to basically like take a graphic and just automatically make a waveform out of it. So I could see how this basic shape sounds.
That's really interesting. Do you think you'd be able to either share a link to that tool or share your screen and kind of show us?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can try and throw something together right now. I mean, it's a basic shape, so yeah, let me see what I can do. In the meantime, however, I did finish my little thingy here. Hold on. There we go.
Oh, hell yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I sort of, I worked the little socialism fist into it.
Nice.
I went for a very literal interpretation.
Right.
I even have a little sign text showing through. That's what I was doing with the pen there.
Oh, no way. So you're doing like the back of the sign or the front of the sign as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, somebody mentioned at some point too about kind of seeing the pattern that emerges from the back of the signs is like there's this ambiguity kind of. So it sort of forces you to as a viewer to think about what would be on the other side of that sign. And I think in this context we know because it's specific to this local like political movement, but it also has the ability to kind of be abstracted out a little bit and connect with other movements where signs are being used.
Yeah, that's really interesting because like there is a uniformity to the back of the sign, but then ambiguity to the front. That's really great.
I'm trying to find some other things that people had talked about. Somebody, I think Patrick, Patrick just jumped back in here. Patrick was saying at one point that it felt like seeing the backs of the signs was feeling of support, right? Because it's like the people are holding the physical signs up, and there's tape and nails holding the sign together, and so you're physically viewing the support structure, which really felt good to talk about like needing support, because at the time when we like Jasper says as a backbone, 100%. I think at the time that these I was like drawing these patterns and that we were showing them and like talking about them, like emotionally I needed a lot of support because it was a really that first week was really hardcore. What else? Somebody was also talking about kind of in the way that we render the backs of the signs that it has this raw kind of feeling to it, and it was I think it was our colleague Nick was talking about how that raw feeling kind of mimics like actually physically holding the wood and the wooden signs and actually carrying it around all day. Like you physically rub your hands like raw, that's why people end up covering some of the stems of the signs in more tape, things like that. So these are all kinds of things that came up that I'm thinking about when looking at these new ones. I'm excited to see whatever Eric's gonna pull up.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of pulling it up right now.
Right on.
I want to see.
It's made for 3D, but I can make it 2D.
Say that one more time, Yulia. Sorry.
I want to see these on the front of the signs now, like the works that you're collecting.
Yeah.
Like they should go on fronts of the signs and be.
Oh, I love that. So like print them back out and
Yeah.
and make them the front of the signs.
And do like a march with them. You know what I mean? Like
I love that idea.
when we can, when it's not
Yes.
close.
That is brilliant. Right? Because then we're taking, and like making an entire new iteration of it, and then like marching with our new back signs with backs of signs turned into front of signs, and now turned into a new sort of like celebration or like movement of something. Yeah, I love that. I think something else I learned today too is that I want to see Tony make more net art.
Wait, what?
I always do that.
I said, Tony, I said something else I learned today is that I want to see Tony make more net art.
Okay. I'll make a web page.
I love this idea of like taking Jasper's like, well, either like taking this image of it and then printing that out and putting that on the front of the sign, or just making a bunch of signs with like miscellaneous objects like this. That's a really awesome idea too.
Okay, I got it. It's very loud, so give me a second.
Okay. Okay, while we're waiting for Eric, Lillian or Sophia, do you guys want to talk about the drawings you did?
Sure. Just a second.
Okay.
I'll go after Lillian.
Okay.
So I sort of intentionally didn't do the horizontal markings in the same way that you had on your sign, and I was trying to imagine what kinds of energy might go into stapling or like taping really rapidly, where you might not necessarily be doing that in this like perfect sort of horizontal line. You might try different things. There might be people who don't know the sort of conventional way to make a sign. And then I left in the tissue where I was blotting the watercolor brush because it felt like an extension of that process and sort of invisible labor or invisible processes that go into sign making that I think could be its own sign.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful to include that.
Also, like having seen the piece in person with sort of everything lined up, it was interesting to, yeah, I mean, because I don't live in Santa Cruz, and so have not been able to really participate in striking, was interesting to imagine how I might make signs, or kind of putting myself in that position of rushed sign making, collective sign making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that's great because like, yeah, so much of like the materials of the strike like made by people who don't have much experience making like political banners or slogans or anything. So I think that's really important to highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's something, you know, about maybe just about kind of strikes in general, but definitely about this strike here is like so many of the roles that have been filled, or like people stepping up to do stuff, is people just deciding to do it. And like it was definitely and definitely has been like a movement of amateurs just like trying stuff. Like I didn't really know what I was doing when I set out to help build the signs in the first place. I just thought like, oh, okay, we'll buy some materials and see see where it goes. So yeah, I like that we're kind of like foregrounding that.
I think there's
and we didn't have any oh, sorry, you're gone.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think there's something too with like using really impractical materials for this. Like I just have this watercolor set that you would never, ever, ever use watercolors to make strike signs. It's like the most ephemeral and inefficient system.
Right, right.
But there's something there with like using materials that you shouldn't be using.
What were you gonna say, Tony?
Oh, just that, you know, in every other strike I've been to on campus, materials have been provided by the union, you know, like AFSCME strike, so UPTI, and as didn't have that. So yeah, they were all handmade and made in backyards and like at the picket itself. So yeah.
Sophia, were you gonna say something about what you were thinking about?
Yeah. So as you may have noticed, I am lying down. My back hurts a lot today, and I didn't want to put in well, you were talking about labor, and so I thought, okay, I should put in the minimal amount of labor possible, which meant opening up Photoshop and making a rectangle shape, and then making the bars by just expanding the canvas. And then I left my brush on the same setting and just cut out the negative space, and then switched the colors and did the lines. And I was done. Because, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's something interesting about the idea of turning this into a digital object that can require like very little physical movement and labor to create. And the kind of iterations getting it further and further away from the materiality of the symbol, I think, is interesting, because I don't know that I personally just have trouble with believing that symbols are reliable things. So that's what I was thinking.
I like this because you know, the thing with the strike is that you're meant to be stopping work, and obviously like what always happens is that you end up doing more work. You have to like, you know, think about the places where you are doing work and try and kind of limit it. So I think like things that you try and minimize the labor on are like important and good to sort of represent.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, like how important the idea of striking is literally limiting the labor, right? Stopping the labor, limiting the labor. And so doing that in the act of making a representation of the sign is awesome. Yeah, and I like that point too, just about signs like, or symbols being having like skepticism around them being stable or being reliable, because well, one, I think just in that tradition of semiotics and linguistics, like that comes up a lot, right? And I think that yeah, I think I would would agree with you in that kind of instability.
Okay.
Okay.
If anyone wants to see this.
Yes, I would love to see that. How do we what's the best way to view that?
Oh, sorry, I turned off my sound. So I can't share my screen.
I think I can allow you to share it.
Okay, that would be good.
You should make Eric co-host, and then
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. 1 second.
Enable that.
Do I do that in the manage participants setting?
Yeah, I can try to do that too.
Okay.
Let me see. Eric, try sharing now.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I can just do the preview. Here we go. Okay, perfect. Let me share computer sound as well. Actually, wait. No, let me not share computer sound. Okay. So can you see this?
Yeah.
All right. So not only does it look cool, but it sounds, well, we'll see how it sounds. And I can also adjust. So
that rules. I love that.
It is a very fun toy to play with. Yes.
That is such a great extension of, like, I mean, Yulia mentioned about the sound component, but like this has sort of the visual and the sonic component to the sign. That's amazing. I never thought of that ever. So I love that you brought that up.
Let's see. Oh, where's Zoom? There it is. Okay. All right. Boop. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see. Share it. Okay. I think, well, maybe Patrick might just be hanging out. But I think everyone's mostly Patrick. Do you have anything you wanna hop in here with? I think Patrick might just be hanging out. Distracted viewing. Okay, no worries. Okay, awesome. Well, if anybody has anything else they want to like throw out or add, now is would be a good time to do that. That's pretty much everything that I have in terms of like kind of a more or less structured dialogue or activity. But yeah, thank you guys so much for participating and for throwing out stuff. I feel like this was very generative. It brought a lot of new ideas into my head. I've got the you guys all have the link to sort of see everybody's work, which was fantastic. Thank you so much to Yulia for like hosting and kind of moderating all the digital aspects and participants and stuff. That's great. But yeah, if anybody has anything else they want to add, go for it. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yay.
Oh, I just want to say thank you, Michael. I think that was really it was really interesting, and I love you as a host. And I just wish I'd seen the first part. It sounds like the conversation was really interesting. But thank you, Michael.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, as a host and as a pedagogue.
Oh,
That was
thank
really great. Thank you, Michael. And thank you all for coming. This was really wonderful. I am going to be hosting a happy hour and meme making session at 8. If you find yourself in the meme making mood, feel free to come back. It's the same Zoom link.
And check out, oh, I sent that not to everyone. Check out strikeuniversity.org because they're doing a lot of really, really great stuff. And there's tons of amazing classes and different teach-ins to Zoom into. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael and Yulia.
Thank you, Julia.
Bye.
Bye all.